You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back in. 609-9199-D200. 418 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios. I always love talking basketball in March with Josh Pastner, the now head coach of Georgia Tech in his first year there. They're going to the NIT semifinal. Just been a tremendous story, and the job that Josh has done this year is really remarkable after having a nice long run at Memphis. And now joining us on the show is Josh Pastner, the head coach of Georgia Tech, who's kind enough to join us right now. Coach, congratulations on a tremendous season. We hope to see 2 more victories for you, but how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate being able to get on and talk hoops again with you. We've had a great run this year. Taking over the job here at Georgia Tech. Initially we're basically picked last place. It's a major rebuild job. You're starting from ground zero, and you're trying to build it back up. It was going to take some time. I was told we're probably not going to win a game this first year in the ACC. Maybe 20 total wins over your first 2 years. That's how much of a rebuild it is. They're going to really hit the reset button, and the plan was by year 4 be on the bubble, and year 5 you need to be in the tournament. That's why we got a 6-year contract. And so good news is we had 20 wins this year, broke the home record for most wins in a single season at 17. We're playing in the semifinals of the NIT. We've overachieved. We've had an unbelievable year. Those are all the good news. The bad news is I've had so many head coaches in the profession text me and tell me that I'm winning too many games in year 1 of a major rebuild job, that I'm killing my own self. You know what I mean?
Hey, Coach, you take that any day of the week when you could beat FSU, Notre Dame, UNC, and Syracuse.
No question.
In a season.
Listen, it's better to be. I'd rather go in next year with higher expectations based on the year before that we did such a good job. It's that's a good problem to have.
Your story, though, is always a special one. Even going back when you were a player in '97 and you were a walk-on at Arizona, you took a ridiculous amount of credits in a short amount of time, got more degrees than probably anyone in this room sitting in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios right now. For you personally, this season, compared to all the others, how much more satisfying is this one? Because once again in your life, you were told, hey, you can't do something, and you proved people wrong.
Well, this has been a very satisfying year, and I actually got asked that same question by somebody earlier today. Has this been your most satisfying year? And here's what I would tell you. I mean, 7 years at Memphis as a head coach. We had a lot of great wins and had great success, and just some 1 year we won 31 games, and so what I would tell you is, however, being there at Memphis though. Every year we were picked either to win the league or finish second at the worst. I mean, that was what you were projected to be, and those were the expectations. And following John Calipari, you needed to be. It was either be in the Sweet 16, Final Four, it's a bust, and especially what following them. And so you're just trying to sustain this. So I had enjoyable years there at Memphis. This is different because we come in, you're picked last place. There's literally zero expectations. Nobody expects anything. So anything you do above that, you look like maybe you're a good coach. And so it's not that it's been the most satisfying. It's been the most enjoyable. And I think part of that because there has been nowhere to go but up in a sense. And so it's been extremely enjoyable. I don't know if it'll always be like this because as we continue to have success, the target, the bullseye, and I really try to stay out of the word expectations. The standards, whatever it may be, continues to rise. And then from there you're going to put on your own internal pressure, your internal drive, just internally in your own clock that you want to continue to move the program forward and move the needle. And like I said, this is a major rebuild job. I mean, the original plan, when they hired me, they gave me a 6-year deal. And the original plan was year 4, we needed to be on the bubble. In year 5, we needed to, be in the tournament. I mean, their thought plan was maybe year 3 and probably year 4 you're going to be in the NIT. And so in year 1 we're in the NIT. And, look, we played Tusculum, a Division II team, in the middle of the ACC season this season. Why? People used to ask, why are you playing Tusculum? in the middle of the ACC season? I said, because everyone told me we're not winning a single game in the ACC. I didn't know. I'd never been in the ACC. I didn't know our team. And so I had to schedule that game because in case we had lost 11 straight, I wanted to stop the bleeding. And to think about this now, going into this season, I had 7 years as a head coach at Memphis. We had not lost 3 games in a row. Our longest losing streak was 2 games. So to keep that streak going, you think, that's going to happen at some point this year. You could possibly be on a 6-game losing streak, 10-game losing streak. To be able to go and now have had 8 years as a head coach and still not have a 3-game losing streak, and the only other coach over the last 8 years that can say that is John Calipari, believe it or not. So think about that stat. And what a credit to the players at Memphis, but also the credit to these guys this year at Georgia Tech to kind of keep that cool little stat that I don't know how long it will forever last, but for at least through 8 years, it's a pretty cool stat to hang your hat on.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but when you take a new job as a coach and as a fierce competitor, you're always evaluating what you can do better. When you walked into Georgia Tech, and I know the expectations were very low, but with how it ended at Memphis, what did you think you needed to change about yourself?
Well, that's a great question. There's a few things. You're there at 7 years at Memphis. You win 70% of your games. You're the fastest in Memphis history to 150 wins. You leave there as 10th in the history of the game after first 7 years for most wins in your first 7 years. You're 10th in the history of the NCAA. So you had a lot of success. But I think after about 7 years, you start falling in love with the place. And if you're not winning at like the elite level, they start falling out of love with you. And so when this job opened at Georgia Tech, I felt, okay, I was under some heat there at Memphis. There's no denying that. I was under some severe heat there. I was able to get this job and get a fresh start and I love my time at Memphis. But on this fresh start, what it did, it allowed me to really have self-awareness in a leadership position. And when I say self-awareness, really reflect, look back, be very critical of my own self, of my strengths and weaknesses, and really admit what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what areas that are important to me. And then from there, I've got to make sure anyone that I hire, recruit, that's surrounded by me needs to have the same alignment that I have in all those areas. And so I think I have such a more clear vision of what I want to do, of how I want to get to where we need to get to, of what we need to do to build the program back up, to rebuild it. My vision of what we need to do, as in terms of the style of play, both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively, has never been as clear as it is from the start of when I took over here.
And what people sometimes forget is we're talking to Josh Pastner, the head coach of Georgia Tech in his first year there, and has had a remarkable Cinderella type of run this year at Georgia Tech. Like, we look here in this area of South Jersey and Philadelphia. We have Villanova. For years, Jay Wright got killed for not getting to that second weekend. Last year wins a national championship. People start calling Jay not only a good coach, but now a great coach. And at Temple in Philadelphia, you have Fran Dunphy. I know you have a lot of respect for. He had to do something similar to you and replace a legend in John Chaney, and that's always tough to do. And it makes you, when you hear all these stories, just really come to the realization that it's so tough when you get into this tourney to really win games, Coach.
Well, what I would tell you is this. First of all, more so now than it's ever been, it is so hard to make the NCAA tournament. Yeah, you're going to have a couple of those elite schools, the Kentucky, the Kansases, the Dukes, maybe even the Carolina, but Arizona. But the reality of it is teams 10 through 200 are all jumbled. Everyone can beat anyone. There's really not that separation. So it's extremely hard to make the NCAA tournament. The NCAA controls the NIT. It's hard to make the NIT now these days. I mean, it's hard to make the NIT. And so what I would tell you is, and it's not going backwards, meaning that it's going to continue to stay that hard. It's going to continue to that if teams don't make the tournament or make postseason, there's a good chance the administration is going to make a change on you. And you have a short window. I mean, that's just kind of how it is, especially at the financial figures that coaches are getting paid at now. And so it's really, really hard. But what I would tell you is, as great as this profession is, the reason it's a hard profession is because, one, you're in a very public job, but your job depends on 18 to 23-year-olds making shots. It's a make-and-miss game. It's a game of inches. And your job depends on these 18 to 23-year-olds. This isn't professional sports. Like in a one-game scenario, everyone's asking me, man, the ACC, how good was it? You guys lost all these games this year in the NCAA tournament, but everyone talked about it was the greatest league ever. This year, for this single year, it was unreal. It was the greatest league ever. How do we lose in the NCAA tournament? A lot of the teams have lost, and why only Carolina's standing? It's strictly because it's the NCAA tournament. In a neutral site, in a one-game scenario, these young men are 18 to 23-year-olds. And if they have an off night, you're going to lose. And these aren't. I mean, probably in the NCAA tournament, there's a total of 10 to 15 guys, maybe not even, that are going to get drafted next year, because you got the international mark, you got this, you got that. It's hard to make. It's hard to play in the NBA. So the reality is, a lot of these guys are great college players, and they're not pros, and so you can have off nights. And if you have multiple guys have an off night, you're going to lose. And that's what makes it hard, and that's what makes the job, as great as it is, that's what makes it hard, because you're dependent on kids at that age to produce for you.
When you watch Arizona play this year, do you see any similarities between your team and 97?
And I don't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
What I would tell you, what I would tell you is and I think Sean Miller is one of the best coaches in the country. He's phenomenal. And he's going to be in the Final Four. I mean, he's going to win a national championship at some point. What I would tell you, though, I would be shocked if Arizona's not in the Final Four this year. I'd be shocked. And I'm not saying that because I'm an Arizona grad. I played there and I coached. It has nothing to do with it. I think they're loaded. I think they're better than any team. And with all due respect to Xavier, all due respect to Gonzaga, all due respect to West Virginia, I don't know how they're going to get beat out of that region. I think of any of the teams, they are a lock to go to the Final Four. I would be shocked if they're not in Phoenix. And I think if they get to Phoenix, which they should, the crowd that they'll have there, because I've been there, obviously living in that state, the crowd that they would have in that dome in Glendale, I mean, you could have literally 50,000 Arizona fans. You know what I mean? And because everyone's there. So I would be shocked, and I don't know. And it's different because we were not, when we won the championship in '97, we had to beat 3 number 1 seeds. We were more the underdog. They're the favorite, and I don't see how they're not going to be in Phoenix. And I would just be based on Sean Miller, how good he is as a coach, and how great the players they have, and how well they're playing right now too.
I know Sean's not going to be thinking about this when the ball goes up in the air, but in the preparation, is that difficult for a coach when you have to prepare against your former team, and not only your former team, but someone that used to be on your staff in a Chris Mack?
You know what? I don't think so. Because I don't know if you remember, they played them, I think, 2 years ago in the Sweet 16, or 2 or 3 years ago they were in the Sweet 16, and Arizona beat Xavier. So I don't think it affects that all that much. Maybe for each guy they know each other, but Sean's been at Arizona now, for 8 years or 9 years, something like that. 9 years as a head coach, and Chris Mack's been the head coach at Xavier for 9 years or 8 years, whatever it is, and maybe both of them are 8 years there. So they've had enough time where they've kind of maybe changed some things, making adjustments, whatever it may be. But in the end, it's a player's game. In Arizona, there's not too many teams, and maybe nobody has more talent this year than Arizona does.
Let me get a real quick question in about your former boss and John Calipari going back up against UCLA. They lost to them earlier in the season, and that game, UCLA had 6 players that were in double figures. What do you think Cal tries to throw differently this time at UCLA, and what ultimately decides that game?
I do think Kentucky's winning that game. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think UCLA is really good. They went into Rupp and beat Kentucky, but it's a different game now. It's totally different. You're in March. You're in the Sweet 16. Different deal. Obviously, I think Kentucky's going to flood the arena there in Memphis at the FedEx Forum where the regionals are at. I just think Kentucky's just, right now they're defending at a really high level. I thought they defended Wichita State very well, and that's one thing on Coach Calipari's teams. His teams have always been really, really good defensively, and so I think they'll play really well. I think UCLA is really good as well, but in the end, I do think Kentucky will win that game.
On the way out with Josh Pastner, who joins us right now. Coach, I'm going to ask you maybe the toughest question in this tournament. The West Virginia press, I saw it up close and personal in Buffalo. If you're trying to prepare for that, let's say you're Gonzaga, how do you try to prepare for that lethal press?
You can't. There is no preparation for it because you can't simulate it. So what you can't do is overanalyze or paralysis through analysis. I mean, at some point, yes, you got to have some structure. You got to have them have a press break and get things in place. But you can play 7-on-5 in practice, 8-on-5 in practice, but it's still not the same athleticism and everything else. You're just not able to simulate it. So what you got to do is the guys got to have confidence. They've got to it's 5-on-5. They can't have an advantage of 6-on-5. They can't grab you or bite you or kick you. That's a foul. So they might get up close to you and yell and scream, but you've got to be able to handle the ball and handle the trap and not let it affect you. And so, but I don't think there's a way to simulate it. I just think at this point you got to be really good against it. Be ball tough. Be sure with the ball. But I'm telling you, like you said, I think they're really good, and I have such great appreciation and respect for Mark Few, and the guy's won 80-some-odd% of his game. He's an unreal coach. I do think West Virginia's beaten Gonzaga. I do think West Virginia will play Arizona. I do think Arizona's going to prevail, but it's not going to be just a cakewalk going through West Virginia because of their toughness, because of the way they press, and they are a very good team. But I do think they're going to end up beating Gonzaga on Thursday.
Yeah, the three-point shot is also very impressive as well. So you have Arizona in the Final Four. How about the other three regions? Who do you like going to the Final Four?
Well, you know what? I think Carolina will come out of the South region. I think it's going to be Carolina, Kentucky, which is a great Elite Eight game. I do think Carolina will sneak through. Just as long as Joel Berry's healthy, I think that's the key. Even though Carolina probably should have lost versus Arkansas, but it seems like every team that wins a national championship, besides that repeat of the Florida one, they've had a close game along the way, if that makes sense. They've had to be tested one time. I always believe that. I like Wisconsin out of the East region. I really like Wisconsin, and the way they're playing now. I mean, I think they're hot. They beat a very good Villanova team, and I like Kansas out of the Midwest region.
Last one for Josh Pastner. Talking about UCLA. Lonzo Ball is just a tremendous player, but with his father and how much of a loquacious personality that he has, as a coach, how do you handle a situation like that?
Well, I don't think Coach Alford's doing any. I mean, he's coaching the kid. I think he's just coaching the team, coaching the kid. I mean, you can't control someone from the outside of the program with what they can say or not say, as in terms of in a public atmosphere, because it's freedom of speech, and so what I would say though is his son who plays at UCLA is really good. Obviously, he's as talented as anybody in the country. He's going to be a high draft pick in the pros. And I do think all this stuff that he's saying about whether it's LeBron or Michael Jordan whether it's on your national network on television or anywhere else, national network television, I mean, they're constantly now talking about the father and about what he said. And so I think it's probably genius of him, if he's trying to intentionally get attention and create buzz, he's doing a heck of a job, because people are talking about him constantly, and I think it's genius, to be honest with you. And if you're talking about marketing and everything else, I mean, he's one of the most in this tournament, probably the most famous guy right now, because of some of the comments he made. And I don't know if he's done it intentionally or not. Or
it's intentional.
But my point is, everyone's talking about him.
You're right. It's entertaining, and it's actually good for the sport.
It's good for the sport. People are talking about him, and you know what? I guarantee you, when his son goes pro after this year, there's going to be some good endorsement deals coming. Not just for the kid, but for the dad too. Yeah. And I'm being serious.
No, you're right. He's going to get a job as some reality TV show or being a commentator or something.
I think it's genius. And what's going to happen is, like, how about if he does a commercial when back in the day when Charles Barkley did the one for Nike and he talked about the I'm not your role model. How about if he does one that says, "Hey man, come buy my stuff and you can beat Michael Jordan too." You know what I mean? So I mean, you just never know. You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to be an interest. Maybe him and Charles Barkley team up and play one-on-one on a commercial. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that could come of it, and I think it's pretty genius by him.
Love it, Coach. By the way, what are you doing for Madison Square Garden? I hear you're spending a lot of money on tickets and donuts these days.
let me tell you something. I bought tickets for the students and donuts for the fans.
Well, you have a 6-year contract. You should be able to.
But I also got ACC Coach of the Year, which gave me a good bonus.
Yeah.
But that is now out because everything I got on that bonus has been spent back to reinvest in the program. But as you know, when you're trying to build it, as I look at this, as when you're a head coach at a level like this, you're really a CEO, and so you got to invest into your business, invest into the program, and maybe for a short-term investment for a long-term return, and that's my thought process on it.
Well, Coach, great first year. We hope to see 2 more wins. We appreciate it, my friend.
Okay, appreciate you having me on.
Thanks so much. There's Josh Pastner, the head coach of Georgia Tech. What a fun story he is. You get told to a job, but you're not going to win an ACC game. Oh, well, how about that? I'll win Coach of the Year. I'll take down Notre Dame. I'll take down UNC, take down Syracuse, take down Florida State, and make it to the semifinals of the NIT. Usually we don't like to celebrate the NIT, but when you're told legit that you have no chance to win, and then you get put in the Final Four of any type of tournament, that's a very impressive job. And I'll say this before, and it sounds like he wore out his welcome at Memphis, but the expectations at Memphis and the pressure and what people were used to, they got a good coach, and they paid a good coach to take another job. And he wasn't perfect. No one's perfect. But he's a really good coach. And I've always said that. And it's no surprise the job he's doing this year at Georgia Tech, because he's that good of a coach. Yes. Is it surprising that they're as good as what they are this year? Yes. But the fact that Josh Pastner is leading it, no, that's not a surprise. That man's a good coach. He's really intelligent, and he's going to be there for a very long time. And that's a very tough league to compete in, obviously. 609-9199-D200. This is the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920, The Jersey. We go from guest to guest. When we get back, we talk about the dreck that is right now the Philadelphia Flyers. Dave Isaac, who covers the team, will join us next, and we'll address the question, should Dave Haxtell be fired? We'll talk about that next.